My lake ranch had always been my quiet escape, the one place where everything slowed down, just open water, distant mountains, and that crisp morning air that made every breath feel clean. No traffic rushing past, no constant noise, and definitely no neighbors trying to tell me how to live. For years, life out here stayed simple and peaceful. One calm morning, I was sitting out on my porch, holding a warm cup of coffee in my hands. My golden retriever was stretched out beside me, soaking in the sunlight without a care in the world. The lake in front of us was completely still, like glass. Then, out of nowhere, a black SUV slowly rolled into my driveway. A woman stepped out like she already owned everything she saw. She was wearing a sharp red business suit, holding a clipboard, and had a very serious expression on her face. Right behind her, a police cruiser pulled in. That's when I realized this wasn't going to be a friendly visit. She didn't hesitate for a second. She walked straight up onto my porch without even greeting me. Then she shoved a thick stack of papers in my direction. "Your property is being seized by the HOA," she said flatly. I glanced down at the document and almost laughed out loud. She immediately started listing off violations one after another. Unauthorized structures, improper land use, HOA jurisdiction policies. According to her, my ranch was now under their authority, and apparently, I had already broken several of their rules. Then she pointed out toward the entire valley surrounding us. "This whole area belongs to the HOA," she said with complete confidence, like the decision had already been finalized. That's when I slowly stood up from my chair. I walked inside the house for a moment, leaving her standing there. When I came back out, I was holding a very old document. The police officer leaned in slightly to get a better look, and I saw his expression change almost instantly. This wasn't just some random paper. It was the original land deed for the entire valley, signed more than 70 years ago, and the name listed as the owner on that document was mine. I pointed across the lake toward the large neighborhood in the distance. Beautiful homes, expensive properties, all perfectly placed with stunning lake views. Then I asked her one simple question. "Do you see those homes over there?" She nodded without hesitation. "That's the HOA community," she replied. I smiled and slowly shook my head. "They're built on my land." For a few seconds, no one said a word. The officer looked at her, then back at the document in his hands. The silence alone said everything. She quickly grabbed the papers and started reading again. Then she read them one more time, more carefully this time. The confidence she walked in began to disappear fast, because the name on that deed wasn't the HOA. The attached map made it even clearer. Every acre around the lake, every road cutting through the hills, every single neighborhood, all of it fell within one property boundary, and that boundary belonged to me. She immediately tried to argue. "That's impossible," she said loudly. "The HOA owns the development." But the officer kept reading quietly, not reacting to her tone. Finally, he looked up and asked her a simple question. "Do you have documents that prove that?" She opened her folder and started flipping to the papers inside, searching for something, anything, that could support her claim. But nothing she had showed ownership. Her confidence started fading right in front of me. She stepped off to the side and made a phone call, probably to the HOA board or their legal team. And judging by the look on her face while she listened, they weren't giving her good news. I leaned back against the porch railing and looked out over the lake again. Across the water sat hundreds of homes, nice houses, expensive views, all built on land they never actually owned. When she came back, she made one last attempt to sound threatening. "We'll take you to court," she said angrily. I simply smiled and nodded, because that was exactly what I wanted them to do. A few minutes later, they left the property. The officer handed my documents back with a respectful nod. Then both vehicles turned around and drove off down the dirt road. But I already knew this wasn't over. That same night, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Lawyers, documents, and land maps were spread across the table. Everyone in that room looked tense, because the situation was quickly getting worse. Survey records confirmed the biggest issue. The original developer had never finalized a land purchase, which meant legally, the HOA didn't own any of it. They had built an entire neighborhood on land that was never theirs. By the next morning, rumors started spreading throughout the community. Homeowners began asking questions. People who had paid millions for their homes suddenly wanted answers, and the HOA didn't have any. Their lawyer carefully reviewed every document. He checked each signature, every line on the map. Then he leaned back in his chair and let out a long sigh. This could turn into a serious legal problem, he said. If those documents are legitimate, then the ranch owner technically owns the entire valley. The room went completely silent because everyone understood exactly what that meant. Meanwhile, my morning returned to normal. Coffee on the porch, my dog resting beside me, and the lake just as calm as ever. Around noon, 3 black SUVs pulled into my driveway. This time, the HOA came prepared with lawyers, briefcases, stacks of paperwork, serious faces, and the same HOA president. Only now she looked far less confident. They spread their documents out across my porch table and started reviewing everything carefully. For nearly 20 minutes, no one said much. Then one of the lawyers finally spoke. "The documents are real," he said quietly. He turned toward the HOA president and pointed back at the land deed. "We have a serious problem here. He owns the land." For the first time since arriving, the HOA president had nothing to say. The threats were gone, and so was any authority she thought she had. Later that evening, I walked up the hill behind my ranch. From that spot, you could see everything: the entire valley, the lake, the forest, and the neighborhood sitting right in the middle of land that belonged to me. Eventually, the lawyers began discussing possible solutions: leases, agreements, settlements, because tearing down an entire neighborhood wasn't realistic. And that's when everything shifted. The HOA no longer controlled the valley. Now, they had to negotiate with the one person who actually owned it. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from.